Welcome to the Gateway Podcast, where we get a chance to sit and talk to the outstanding professionals who serve in the 37 Training Wing. I get the privilege to host this podcast and serve as Warhawk Nation's Command Chief. So, without further delay, let's jump into it. As a reminder to all listeners, all topics discussed are unclassified, and the views expressed by our guests and hosts are not necessarily the position of the United States Air Force, the Department of Defense, or any government agency. Welcome to the Gateway Podcast. I'm your host, at least for now. Hopefully, for the next 18 months, I get to be hosting this podcast, or I get to host this podcast. I'm Chief Master Sergeant Carlos Damian, and today I got a real special episode. I got military training instructors in the room, and we are going to talk about some of their experiences, what they're going through right now, what they do, and maybe dispel some rumors that prior to getting here. Maybe gives information to the folks who may be interested in being a military training instructor. And remember, not too much pressure here, but you are representing the entire military training instructor corps here. And with that, let's go ahead and introduce our guests.
So I'm Master Sergeant Luciano Rosano, born and raised in Tucson, Arizona. Grew up right next to DM. Lived in the same house my entire life. Joined the military back in 2012. Been in the military for 12 years.
12 years.
Yeah.
Damn.
So with that being said, I work over at the Military Training Instructor School. So anybody who gets selected for the DSD process and ends up getting that notification that, hey, you're going to be an MTI, you'll come through my team. I started off over at the 323rd Training Squadron, so I did my tenure there, and it's a little bit about myself.
What career field did you come from?
So I'm prior security forces.
Okay, I see a tab on your shirt there. What is that?
Yeah, so throughout my career, I've had the opportunity of going through a couple schools. So I went to Ranger School back in 2020. So Ranger qualified, not an Army Ranger. There's a little bit of a difference between the two, but I can elaborate on that a little bit more later on.
All right. Turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, Chief. So I'm Technical Sergeant Selena Ortega. Hometown is Holyoke, Massachusetts. I'm in a very unique position because I'm a reservist. I've been a reservist for 11 years, so I enlisted in 2013. Coming to BMT was my first time away from my household. So growing up in a very strong Hispanic family, this was our first opportunity, first generation, join the military, get away from home. So being a reservist is, again, unique opportunity. I started off as security forces personnel, then cross-trained to mental health, while also trying to multitask a civilian career in education. On the civilian sector, I'm a Massachusetts State Trooper. I've been doing law enforcement since 2017. I decided to get more fulfillment and give back to the future generation as my head military and training instructors did for me. So had the opportunity to come down to be part of the 433rd Training Squadron, served as a line instructor, then a trainer for the 433rd, the 326, and now I have the unique opportunity to expand my horizon. So I am the executive assistant to the senior enlisted leader for the 737th.
And is that Chief Master Sergeant Dan Anderson?
Chief Dan.
So shout out to Chief Anderson. I just left a meeting literally running out of here so I can come over here and do that podcast. And then as soon as we're done here, I get to go run back and jump right back into that. So you enjoy it then. So you wanted to, you come back and then you're coming out of Massachusetts. So
correct, sir. So when I first became a military training instructor, they put you on a set of what they call MPA orders or school orders, just to put you through the school to become an MTI as well as the training qualification. At that point in time, you get the opportunity to extend your MPA orders and stay for under 180 days before you're given the opportunity based on available slots to pick up a active guard reserve, so AGR tour, which is a 3-year tour. Because I loved being an MTI, the mission statement of the 737th, and then being able to support not only the wing, but the 340th at Randolph, who owns the 433rd, I left my civilian job and decided to relocate to San Antonio for 3 years to fulfill being a military training instructor.
That's awesome. And our third guest.
Good afternoon, Chief. My name is Master Sergeant Atif Siddiqui. I've been at Lackland for about a year and a half now. I currently serve at the 737 Training Support Squadron as a full-time additional duty first sergeant for Raptor Flight, which is essentially the holdover airmen and trainees that are over there awaiting either entry-level separation or awaiting going back to training. My career field is 4NO, which is a medic, aerospace medical technician with wings for aeromedical evacuation as well. And I grew up in Dallas, Texas, but I was born in the United Arab Emirates and immigrated to the United States in 2000.
2000. Wow. So a diverse crew here. I wish we had like 50 instructors in here, but probably nobody get a word in edgewise. So maybe it's good that we have 3. Each of you have your own experiences. Each of you have experienced life through different lenses. Why come back? Why did you want to be a military training instructor? That's question number 1. And the second part of the question, the follow-up portion of that, why, what did you learn right away when you first got here?
So I'll kick it off. So again, unique opportunity because I had a full-time job and I had everything established for pension career in Massachusetts, but I was part of the development training flight for Westover Air Reserve Base, which was where I was assigned as a reservist. So development and training flight is a delayed entry program for reservists where we get to teach them depending on when they ship out to BMT and when they enlist, we get to teach them different aspects of preparation for basic military training, from dress and appearance to customs and courtesies, for a 2-day drill weekend period, 1 weekend a month until they ship out. The mentorship and opportunities I got to develop those future trainees really embarked a pivotal point where I wanted more. And I wanted to lead the future generation, being able to mentor them and help them with individual situations because a lot of them didn't have life experience. Joining the military was the make it or break it between them going down the wrong path or going down the right path to help their future family. I helped a lot of individuals who had mental health issues or concerns because they didn't have a role model. So being able to have that experience really pivoted me to become a military training instructor. I found out for the first time after 10 and a half years in the military that there was reserve MTIs. So was able to make that connection with the squadron here and relocated, as I mentioned, to be a military training instructor. One of the biggest things I learned early on in my MTI career was patience, because sometimes I wanted it more than the trainees did. And that was a really hard thing to overcome, where I'm like, well, why are you not focused on rolling your shirts or t-shirts? After I explained it, I gave you a whole impression, did another lockstep, breakdown. I can't want it more than you. Some of them were okay with just doing the bare minimum. And at some point, it opened up a new light where they wanted more for themselves because they saw there was a greater picture. So flexibility and patience would be the 2 things I took away early on as being a military training instructor.
For me, the day I left basic military training, I knew I was going to come back to be a military training instructor. This is my dream job. And it was mostly due to my own military training instructor, which was, he's now Sergeant McMillan. He's at the United States Air Force Academy. Shout out. So he was a senior airman at the time, and he was around a bunch of NCOs, but the way he carried himself, you would never be able to tell. And I wanted to be just like him. And I'm grateful to be here and to be able to lead the next generation.
So I'm going to bring a different perspective. Just to be candid, I did not necessarily want to be a military training instructor. I feel like my career, I always had this goal of where I was going to end up, and it always seemed like, hey, something came up and my career went the complete opposite way. Learned to use lemons to make lemonade kind of situation. So once I got vectored, I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do a DSD, I'm going to do the big one. I'm going to go for MTI. So yes, it wasn't necessarily something I pursued, but once it came across my desk, I didn't have a choice. I picked 2 DSD jobs. Put MTI as number 1, put AMT as number 2. So I got selected as an MTI. And then once I got down here, another reason why I went over to the MTIS, Military Training Instructor School, is the cadre at the time. They gave that amazing first whole impression, and the amount of mentorship and how much they poured into our cups was amazing. Being mentored and given all this advice and all this wisdom that's just passed on, and their experiences that they shared with us. Took that, got over to the line, and people will ask you like, oh, what's your favorite part about MTI? Are you someone who likes drill? Are you someone who likes dorm? And for me, my response was like the mentorship, taking a whole bunch of individuals that come from all across the United States, sometimes from different territories around the globe, and being able to pour into their cup and give them that first whole impression. And there's so many different lessons that I've learned. And one of the things that I've shared with them is like, you're going to walk down the same road that I've walked down. I just want you to stumble less than I've stumbled. So every now and then I feel like everybody throughout their career has come across a point in time to where they're looking for that mentor and maybe they didn't have it. So I'm also really big on like becoming the hero of your own story. And again, was MTI my number one pick? Did I ever think I was going to be an MTI? No, but it did come across my path. And when I took it and ran. And I've learned a lot. And I definitely think this has shaped me for the better, or anybody who ever gets selected as an MTI. Like, you will grow and you will be a better person. You'll be a better, like if you're in a relationship, a better spouse. You'll be a better parent. You'll be a better NCO. Just well-rounded, you're going to develop. So
what is the number one thing, if you had to say, I learned this? You said patience, but I'm going to give you a chance to reattack as well. But what is the one thing that you feel like you honed this one character, this one skill set as a military training instructor?
Ownership.
Ooh, expand.
Trainees don't suck, right? Sometimes we'll be like, oh, this new generation, based off of like how they grew up, maybe they're more sedentary, they're not as physically fit, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, they are a reflection of the instructor. And sometimes you can, I always do like to throw out there, give a 10% allowance for individuals who slip through the cracks, but you can't allow that 10% to speak for the majority. Like, if your entire flight is not doing a good job, you have to take a step back and look and be like, ownership. You can reference Jocko Willink, Extreme Ownership, all his books that are out there, but I always could have gave instructions better. I always could have prepped more. Like, everything that you put into this job, and then you give that instruction, you give that mentorship, your feedback is their performance. So if they're doing well, hey, I'm going to take a little mental note and be like, this strategy was effective. This verbiage was effective. Did I spend too long in my instruction? I talked too much, right? Simplify that instruction, get them on task, give them more feedback. So the number one thing is ownership. If they're doing something wrong I'm not going to say before I correct them, because I need to correct it in the spot, but I'm going to give myself and prioritize some time to self-reflect and be like, okay, what did I mess up?
Okay. Yeah. Ownership. I love that. I'm a huge fan of accountability in the ownership portion of it.
Humility for me. Very early in my time as a military training instructor, I feel I messed up quite a bit, and just understanding what I messed up on and just relaying it to my trainer, even that, hey, I did something incorrectly. How can I fix it? Actually revealing that I messed up on something and requesting that feedback on how I can fix it. I think that was very tough for me in the beginning, but I learned that here.
For my reattack, followership. And what I mean by that is having the ability to exhibit humility and want to develop others by giving a simple answer of, I may not know this right now, but let me look it up and I'll circle back with you. That goes a long way, not only with other military training instructors, but your trainees as well. They look up to you. You are their mentor. You're their leader, their coach, pushing them through the 7.5 weeks of this pipeline program. You might not know every aspect. As I mentioned, being in the reserves for 11 years, as silly as it was, the first time I learned what a surf was 2-3 months ago, because reservists don't have surfs. So being able to develop different statuses of trainees, active duty, guard, when I only know the reserves, I had to be okay with having a follow-up conversation. As I mentioned, whether it be with a trainee or another colleague.
So I'm at your feet, just at your guys' feet right now. I love the answers you guys are, you're giving, so mature and I would tell you, when I came down here, I was a very, very young staff sergeant. I'm not quite sure I had that mindset. I think we all change when we come down here. And I'll tell you this, as a junior NCO, for me, it was the catapult for my career, but it was also catapult of my life. I'm glad you said that. I fail a lot of stuff. Sometimes I fail being a spouse, fail being a father. But a lot of the characteristics and a lot of things that I've learned, a lot of hardships, being a military training instructor help just kind of propel my life. As you said, sometimes it doesn't go 100 or 180 degrees, but sometimes those vectors, you never know what's going to happen, like the Forrest Gump type stuff. So, but I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I learned. And the maturity that you guys all display is just absolutely phenomenal. One thing that I will never forget, I became a military training instructor about 22 years ago. And I took my hat off 18 years ago. That's before the advent of the thing called the device I just told you guys, please remove the desk, the old cell phone. This is before the major Google, Apple, all these things. So much has changed, but just a lot of the fundamental day-to-day stuff is the same. And I'll never forget the times that airmen came into my life, maybe one specific airman or one specific flight that shifted me and completely changed a thought process for me. Maybe not my whole life, but a thought process that impacted my life. That one individual right now is a Chief Master Sergeant, and he's about to retire. So I'm not trying to say that to date myself, but that individual is about to retire, and he shifted my life and taught me so much about just gratitude and being open. Have you had one of those in your lives during your MTI career? Have you had somebody come in and just completely shake a thought process out of you that, wow, this is really something I never really thought about? And if you could share that.
I've had a few. I think the one that resonates the most with me is he told me that he was involved with criminal activity prior to enlisting. He was able to enlist and made, all the contacts, but making it through basic training because he was considered part of the older population. He really wanted to mentor the younger generation because this opportunity was the last opportunity to succeed in life, be a productive father and a good spouse. So that resonated with me a lot because he really cared about succeeding at basic training and helping the younger generation. And every time that they messed up as a flight and they got that negative the negative comments or the positive reinforcement to keep going because they need that affirmation, he really took that to heart. And I think it just developed me as an NCO going forward about just because we're a military training instructor and we have that campaign bush cover, we don't necessarily need to wear it all the time. You can wear different hats. You can serve as a overall coach, mentor, giving the techniques and advice of a first sergeant. We wear so many different hats here. And that really shifted me of how do I want to develop? There's no one way that I need to cater to a flight. I need to be well-rounded. I need to be flexible. So he really pivoted how I shifted my thought process because my TQ flight, coming from a law enforcement mentality from the civilian side, I was going hardcore all the time to the point where my trainees were giving me feedback at TQ flight when I disclosed them, hey, you're my first flight. I'm still in student status. They're like, Sergeant Ortega, you were actually not approachable. We were so afraid of coming to talk to you about a situation because all you would do is pour 341s because you wanted to hold us accountable. That's to the point where we were afraid to share something that we were going through. And he was part of that flight. So I really took that to heart about, okay, maybe there's different ways to hold people accountable. It's not always, using a command voice. It's not always pulling a 341. Sometimes it could just be a simple conversation about what is happening, what is changing your mindset and behavior as a trainee so that I could make sure that you are succeeding through the 7.5 weeks, but also through the rest of your career.
So 2 scenarios come to mind, and please let me know if this answers your question or not. But one, I think about my dorm chiefs, because my dorm chiefs, those are the ones that they have characteristics about themselves that I want to make sure that we capitalize on and that they share that with the flight. It's not that I'm pouring more into them than others, but I want to make sure that we capitalize on the talent that we have and that all the rest of the trainees can learn from those individuals. So I had Trainee Dang and Trainee Laughlin. Trainee Dang, he was just a younger individual, and I remember from 0 week pickup night, individuals, chaos going around, dumping bags. They just got all this stuff issued from the PRC. We got to put things away. And when you talk about like teamwork and wingman concepts, some people have to learn that. People who have like this me mentality, or they're so stressed, they want to make sure that they are taken care of. And he was one of those trainees that if he was done, he was running, which you shouldn't be doing in the dormitories, but he was running down the bays just to help somebody else out. So those are the things like right off the bat, I'm like, okay, I need to capitalize on that. And best flight that I had. So if he ever hears this, don't let your head get too big. But
he's out there, he's listening.
Oh, yeah, right. And then I had Trinity Laughlin. Trinity Laughlin, again, exhibited great leadership characteristics, but then he just kept making mistakes. So I was on flight. It was my day off. IS comes in, walks in. Dorm wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing. He gets fired from dorm chief. Another MTI says, hey, your dorm chief's fired. They were not performing up to standards. They weren't, doing what they needed to do. They had no control of the flight. That's absolutely justified. My wingman is giving me their opinion on something. I got to support my wingman. Work something out to where it's just like, all right, you know what? The dorm is requesting this individual to be dorm chief again. So I was like, you have to make sure that we work together as a team so everybody can perform these duties. Gets fired again for something else later down the line. So I was like, at that point in time, being able to hold somebody accountable and just be like, there is no favoritism. On request of your peers to keep team dynamics, you had a second opportunity, but there's no third chance, fourth chance, fifth chance. So we had to swap it out. And funny enough, that was the day of flight photo. So he got to be in the photo as the dorm chief. And then later that evening, he got fired for the second time. So those are two individuals that I think about that really stand out, who I'll remember. But then the other individuals, which I don't necessarily have names for them, but taught me emotional intelligence and developed me, was the individuals who had a hard exterior. Because those individuals who have a hard exterior, I need them to buy into this product. I need them to be committed, not compliant kind of thing. And sometimes they don't like getting yelled at, and so you have to adjust your approach. And then you start to develop that emotional intelligence to understand that I may have to approach somebody this way. Maybe I can be direct. Maybe I can elevate my voice a little bit. But if I start to do that for this individual, they start to shut down. And so when you start to read those individuals, how can I get this individual who has such a hard exterior to grow and develop and achieve the same standards? And what I have learned, and people may agree or disagree, but those individuals that have the hardest exterior have a soft inside. So I would sort of capitalize on that and let them know that if you have to be hard on the outside based off of who you were prior to this, that's not how you have to be to continue to move forward. So whatever you did to get to where you're at is not who you have to be to continue to move forward. So to allow them, be vulnerable with myself, to have those conversations with them, to get them to be vulnerable and really try and be that good whole impression for those individuals, because people come from all kinds of walks of life. I've had individuals who came off the street who were poor, backgrounds that I won't dive into, but there's somebody who's always got it worse than you. I've had individuals who showed up and they had all their stuff in airlock bags, right? And they can only show up with one bag and all their stuff. And as soon as you open up that airtight bag, it just blows up, and it's like, this is not going to fit in 2 luggage bags. But coordinating with them, and that's everything that I have. And so, yeah, those are the 2 categories that come to mind. You have your individuals that you're always going to remember, but then you have the individuals that have taught me a lot, and to be able to take that with me wherever you go, and to be able to have that emotional intelligence and just try and connect. Maybe you're not the best at it, but if you just make that effort, you try, you care, and you're always getting a little bit better, those are some things that stuck with me.
I love that. So I'm a ravenous reader of not just, everyone's like, oh, you're a chief, you read leadership books all day. No, I mostly read about theory. I like theory, and I like hardened data points. But, something that resonates with that is that quote from Gandhi. I was about 3-4 months ago, I read a book, based on, it was just a biography about Gandhi. And he has that great quote as like the single greatest ability that a human has is the ability to change directions, change momentums, change thought processes, change the way they eat, they sleep, the way they treat one another. And then I think basic training is a great part for these young men and women who we get the honor to be a part of their lives, and they get the honor, it's reciprocal, to be a part of your life. And when they go out there, you have ability to change them, to help them out. There's very few jobs that give you immediate satisfaction that you get that in a 7.5 week period, especially when their families show up. What about you? Was any one particular airman or time that changed you?
So this was my first flight right out of TQ, and
TQ is training qualifications for those who don't know what that is.
Yes. So first time without a trainer, and I was picking up. I remember this trainee very well. He, right at the end of the night after we had gotten them situated with everything, about to get into the showers, this trainee comes up to me telling me that he didn't have any clothes. All he had was the stuff he had on his back. That day, I knew I was going to do whatever it took to make sure he makes it through. It goes kind of hand in hand with what Sergeant Ortega said to, be that mentor at that point. We were able to get some holdover clothes that we had extras of downstairs to get him some clothes until he received his uniforms. And he ended up being an honor graduate in my flight. And truly that I still remember his face, still remember his name. I'm grateful that I was able to get him through that.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing those stories, because these vignettes, these short stories, I know you guys can probably go on for days. That's what the best part, I think, of leaving being a military training instructor is the life experience, of course. The ability to grow as a leader, as a follower, as just a human being, like you said. But your stories count too. The stories, when you go out there, everybody's going to want you to, hey, can you tell me a story about this? To have those stories that'll be a part of your memory. And I would say write them down. Write some of these things down, because they'll come to your memory fades after a while. And I wish I wrote some of those poignant times in life down. What makes a good military training instructor? Everyone's smiling. I know we're not on video right now, but you should see the Chester Cat smiles on their faces right now. I'm pretty sure it's going to be some diverse answers. There's no wrong answer either.
So when I think of our role is to prepare men and women for military service, we throw around, you actually brought up followership earlier, and I'm huge on followership because we talk about leadership so much that we never really actually talk about followership. But the way I would define leadership in just basic terminology is just to lead by example. So a good military training instructor is going to be able to perform drill. It's going to be able to maintain their flight office, right? If we're having the trainees maintain their dormitory to a specific standard, they're going to be able to do the same thing for their area of responsibility. They are going to exhibit the highest level of performance, dress and appearance, fitness, exactly what the enlisted force structure says as well. Being out at the PT pad, it's just anything you want the trainees to do, you should be doing it by leading by example. You don't even have to say anything. They should just be able to see you and watch you and exhibit what you are displaying. And to me, that allows that personalization for every single person to put in. But if there is a task that we are asking of them, then we need to be able to perform that task as well. And so I think that's what makes a good military training instructor.
And I will echo that as well, leading by example. But for my situation, it was very different for me because I became a first-time parent while being a line instructor. And I didn't want my trainees to know or treat me any differently or think that I couldn't do physical, training activities with them because of the fact that I was pregnant. And I never allowed them to see that vulnerable side of me. And because of that, I think it shaped how I was going to be a training instructor during those specific flights. So at this point in time, I entered the 326 training squadron. I'm about 6 months pregnant, and I refused to get off the line. I refused to get on a pregnancy waiver because nope, I'm not doing it. I want to show my trainees that you can adapt and overcome and adjust and maintain that flexibility. So again, for the longest time, my trainees didn't even know I was pregnant, and I was the only training instructor, to my knowledge, that would put the trainees on their face to do physical PT for either a positive reinforcement or, hey, we screwed up today, we're going to get better by, working on our physical PT. And I would do it with the trainees. So shifting a couple months forward, I'm now 9 months pregnant. I'm doing flutter kicks with my trainees because for a positive thing. And I was fully, blown up, and the trainees are like, there is no way you are 9 months pregnant doing PT with us. You're getting on the floor. And I said, absolutely, because I'm not going to require you to do something if I'm not going to do that myself. And a pregnancy is not going to stop me. So they saw that motivation. And at that, they were my male trainees. And some of them couldn't keep up with my flutter kicks. And they were like, Sergeant, like, you are a unicorn. And I was like, heck yeah, that's a win for me. So again, being able to lead by example, show the trainees that you're able to do something, and no matter what, they can do the same.
For me, mine is a little bit different. Yes, lead by example, but also understanding what's on your chest is also what matters, not the campaign hat on your head. You came here because of what's on your chest, the stripes that are on your chest, and you need to understand that you're an NCO first, or senior NCO first. And that I think sometimes does get lost, but being aware of your rank also and your position is very important when it comes to being a military training instructor.
So as we start to close the show out, what's the biggest misconception? I'm going to ask you two questions. What's the biggest misconception that you've maybe had or that you wish other people would know? And would you recommend this job? And again, for the listeners out there, I don't pre-brief. I don't do a whole stage thing. So whatever comes out of your mouth is what comes out of your mouth. It's we're not in here trying to recruit. We're trying to inform. We're sharing your stories. So again, what's the biggest misconception? And would you recommend this job to somebody out there who's thinking about doing it?
If I may.
Full send.
The job doesn't suck. It's hard. So don't confuse the two. Because sometimes, like, words mean things, right? So if you're saying that, hey, this job sucks, this is a negative connotation. All you're doing is going down a path of negativity. But if you just replace that word with, hey, this job is difficult or this job is hard, there's growth from that. And so anytime that I could just try and be a little bit optimistic within my stairwell, especially when like morale was a little bit low, just acknowledging the fact that the job is hard a little bit. And, people are going to ask like, hey, how's being an MTI? And if you're over here just saying like, hey, it sucks, you're building this negative connotation and this thing that's not true. It's not that it sucks. It's just hard. Does going through hard things suck? Yeah, but the job itself it doesn't suck, because the amount of transformation that you get to see, that you get to directly impact and be a part of, that doesn't suck. The development that you get from it at any rank, that doesn't suck. So I would absolutely recommend it. Give or take a 10% of allowance. I do think that like there is a group of individuals that this job just may not be for. But if you think that you're going to come down here and get nothing from it, that's not true. Whether you want to grow or not, you're definitely going to grow, and it's going to make you a better person. So I have another train of thought that you got to ask yourself, are you trying to get better or are you trying to get comfortable? And there's a time and a place to be comfortable. By all means, you need that rest and relaxation. You need to recover, and but this place is going to make you better. So if you're coming down here and you're trying to get comfortable, you're just going to run into a lot of resistance, but you are doing that to yourself. If you get tasked with this assignment and maybe like similar to me, it wasn't necessarily the job that I wanted to do, but it came across my path. Well, you know what? There's a reason why any prior MTI that you've probably ever talked to has said is the most rewarding job that they ever had. So you talk to people maybe who are going through the thick of it, they might not have like the best things to say about it, because going through things that are hard is challenging in and of itself. But once that's done, those are the things that you cherish the most. So ask a prior MTI, not a current MTI, what they think about the job, and they'll probably tell you something a little bit more rewarding.
Absolutely. Thank you for that answer. Appreciate that.
So the biggest thing I always hear as a trend is burnout. And my biggest suggestion to anyone who wants to become a military training instructor or our current line instructors is you need to be able to pace yourself. Enjoy being an MTI in the moment. Don't worry about, I want to become a military training instructor trainer, or I'm going to become a master military training instructor. Your time will come. Enjoy the moment, enjoy being a mentor, leading the next generation, being not only, crafting those different levels of being an MTI and those different qualities and those core competencies that we talk about, enjoy it. The minute you start to think about what's going to happen 6-7 months from now, you'll experience that burnout. It's, the sergeant next to me mentioned, you're working 10 hours, you're working sometimes 6 days a week, and you only have that Sunday off to recover. But you coming in that Monday morning with 110%, the trainers will see that, and they feed off your energy. So if you come in with the incorrect mindset of, I don't want to be here, or I'm tired of being a line instructor, it's not rewarding anymore, you're not giving the best product to your trainees.
You guys' answers are blowing me away.
I agree completely with Sergeant Ortega. She kind of took all of my words out of my mouth with everything she said, but
That's terrible going third. I apologize for that.
with regards to some of the difficult things that are here, yes, it's difficult, but it's not impossible. It's the most rewarding part of my career so far, without a doubt about it. And I've done some pretty amazing things throughout my career, but this has been an amazing experience, and the growth that I've had since I've been here has been just amazing. So
you recommend?
I would highly recommend.
All right. So I don't mean this to sound a lack of humility by any means, but here, for me, in my chosen profession, what I chose to do when I raised my right hand in 1997 and said, I, Carlos Francisco Damian, do solemnly swear. Here I am 27 years later at the pinnacle of my career where I started. And I'm so honored by that. And how I got here was because I was a military training instructor. And what I take away from that is I surrounded myself with people who were better than me, people who thought differently than me. I was a maintainer. I thought you can't outwork me. The defenders, natural rivalries, who can work harder, who can do all that. And I didn't care. I met some of the career fields I wouldn't have thought came out here and just absolutely flourished. And again, I surround myself with people who are better than me, people who can add to me, not necessarily tell me, oh, you're super pretty, or you run fast, or you're super smart. I surrounded myself with people I thought were better than me, smarter than me, faster than me. What can I glean from them? And I learned that as a military training instructor. And the lesson that I continue to learn is, and I didn't say anything about a rank. Specifically, I surround myself with people. So when I look at the three of you, I'm getting goosebumps just saying this and the way I feel. I'm honored to serve alongside you. I'm honored to serve alongside people who actually want to do and want to make this enterprise, this Air Force that we all cherish, in different lenses and different ways. So thank you for coming over today. I apologize for running a little late. That thing we have in the command as a command chief is I always feel like I'm late. But at the pinnacle of my career, I've never stopped learning and surrounding myself with people who are smarter, better, all the things. So thank you for coming in here and imparting some knowledge and re-inspiring me and motivating me to go out there and be a better command chief and be a better person. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Teammates, thank you for tuning in. For any topics, questions, or guest requests, please shoot me an email or leave a comment below. Thanks for tuning in. As a reminder to all listeners, all topics discussed are unclassified, and the views expressed by our guests and hosts are not necessarily the position of the United States Air Force, the Department of Defense, or any government agency.